The Audacity of Humanity, When Diplomacy Meets Determination. Part 1. First Contact Fallout. The UEA's horizon sliced through the darkness of space, its fusion engines leaving a faint blue trail as Captain Ilara Chen gazed out at the unfamiliar star system. Humanity had been exploring the cosmos for nearly 3 decades since developing faster-than-light travel, but this marked their deepest venture yet into the uncharted regions of the Orion Spur. "All scans complete, Captain," Lieutenant Navid said from his station, fingers dancing across holographic controls. "The fourth planet shows signs of advanced civilization, massive energy readings, orbital structures, and what appears to be a planetary defense grid." Captain Chen nodded, tucking a strand of her short black hair behind her ear. At 42, she'd spent nearly half her life on exploration vessels, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for what they were detecting. "Population estimate?" she asked. "Based on thermal and energy readings, at least 8 billion. And Captain," Navid paused, double-checking his instruments, "we're being scanned thoroughly." Before Chen could respond, Communications Officer Yoshida's console erupted with activity. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission on multiple frequencies. They're speaking English." "Put it through," Chen ordered, straightening her uniform jacket as she rose from her command chair. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a humanoid figure with pale lavender skin, elongated features and eyes that seemed to reflect the cosmos itself, completely black with pinpoints of light like stars. The alien wore an ornate uniform of metallic fabric that shifted colors with each subtle movement. "Unidentified vessel," the alien spoke with perfect pronunciation, but an oddly musical cadence. "You have entered sovereign territory of the Vectheri Dominion. I am Grand Admiral Zex Terrell of the 7th Imperial Fleet. Identify yourself and prepare for boarding and assessment." Captain Chen maintained her composure, though she felt her pulse quicken. First contact scenarios were meticulously planned and rehearsed, but encountering a fully developed interstellar civilization changed everything. "This is Captain Ilara Chen of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We are an exploration vessel from Earth, engaged in peaceful scientific research. We had no knowledge this system was claimed by any civilization. We extend greetings and hope for peaceful dialogue." The alien's expression remained unchanged, but something in those star-filled eyes hardened. "Your ignorance of our territorial claims does not excuse your trespass. The Vectheri Dominion has ruled this sector for 16,000 cycles. All species encountered must submit to assessment and classification. You will power down your propulsion systems immediately." Chen exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander Jackson, whose subtle headshake confirmed her own instinct. Something wasn't right about this demand. "Grand Admiral, we're on a mission of exploration, not conquest. We propose a formal meeting to establish diplomatic relations between our peoples. However, standard protocol prevents us from powering down systems while in unfamiliar space." The alien's face showed the first hint of emotion, something between confusion and indignation. "You misunderstand, Captain Chen. This is not a negotiation. The Dominion does not establish relations. Lesser species either accept their proper place in our hierarchy or face immediate consequences. Your vessel's primitive design suggests your civilization ranks at best as a Class 3 client race, suitable for resource extraction oversight with limited autonomy." A tense silence fell over the horizon's bridge. Chen could feel her crew's eyes on her, waiting for her response to this extraordinary arrogance. And then something unexpected happened. Lieutenant Commander Rivas, the normally stoic tactical officer, laughed. It wasn't loud, but in the silence of the bridge, it was unmistakable. Grand Admiral Zex Terrell's star-filled eyes widened. "Your subordinate displays inappropriate behavior during Imperial communication. Explain this breach of protocol." Chen couldn't help the small smile that formed on her lips. "I apologize, Grand Admiral, but humans sometimes laugh when faced with unusual situations. We've traveled 27 light-years to discover new life and exchange knowledge, only to be immediately classified as a resource extraction species. You must understand this is not how we expected first contact to proceed. Your expectations are irrelevant, Zex Terrell said coldly. The Dominion has catalogued over 300 sentient species. All have eventually accepted their designated role. You will comply or face immediate correction. As if on cue, sensors detected movement. 3 massive vessels had emerged from behind the system's ringed gas giant, each at least 20 times the size of the horizon. Their design was organic yet crystalline, resembling massive sea creatures crafted from amethyst and platinum. Captain, those ships are powering up weapons systems, Rivas reported, all humor gone from her voice. Chen nodded calmly. Grand Admiral, we have no hostile intentions toward the Vectheri Dominion. However, threatening a diplomatic vessel violates the most basic principles of civilized contact. I suggest we both take a step back and approach this more thoughtfully. You continue to behave as if you have standing to negotiate, Zex Terrell said. This further confirms your species' appropriate classification. You will receive one final opportunity. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding, or we will demonstrate the consequences of defiance. Chen's mind raced through options. The Horizon wasn't a warship. It carried standard defensive systems, but nothing that could challenge vessels of that size. Their best chance was to stall for time. Grand Admiral, I am not authorized to surrender my vessel to any foreign power. However, I am authorized to establish first contact protocols. I propose a neutral meeting ground where representatives from both our civilizations can meet safely. This would allow proper cultural exchange rather than immediate subjugation. For the first time, Zex Terrell seemed momentarily at a loss. The alien's expression suggested this response didn't fit any expected protocol. Your persistence is unusual. Most species recognize the futility of resistance when confronted with Dominion might. The Grand Admiral seemed to consult something off-screen. What assurance can you offer that this is not a deception? We will maintain our current position and make no aggressive moves. Additionally, I'm prepared to share limited cultural and historical information about humanity as a gesture of good faith. After what seemed like an eternity, the alien nodded. The Dominion will permit this deviation from standard protocol. You have 20 standard cycles to prepare your diplomatic representatives. Be advised that any attempt to bring weapons or unapproved technology to this meeting will result in immediate termination. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge crew in stunned silence. Well, Commander Jackson said, breaking the tension, that went better than expected. They only threatened to kill us twice. Send a priority transmission to Earth Command, Chen ordered. Include full details of the encounter and request immediate diplomatic support. And Jackson. Yes, Captain. Have the engineering team prepare a complete analysis of those vessels. I want to know everything about their technology that our sensors can tell us. As the crew rushed to carry out her orders, Shen returned her gaze to the view screen where the 3 massive alien ships maintained position, their crystalline surfaces gleaming in the light of the system's star. What do you think they really want? Jackson asked quietly. Chen shook her head. I don't know, but no civilization develops that level of technology while maintaining such a rigid approach to contact unless there's something else going on. They've encountered hundreds of species but seem completely unprepared for anyone to question their authority. Psychological weakness, Jackson suggested. Or cultural blind spot, Chen replied. Either way, we need to buy time. Earth needs to know what we're dealing with before we commit to anything. 16 hours later, the UEA's diplomatic corps vessel Concordia emerged from FTL on the edge of the system. Smaller than the Horizon but more elegantly designed, it carried Earth's quick response diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Xavier Morgan. Captain Chen, Morgan greeted her as they met in the Horizon's conference room. Tall and distinguished with silver-streaked dark hair, the ambassador had negotiated humanity's first 3 alien treaties. I've reviewed your report. These Vecteri sound challenging. That's an understatement, Ambassador. They've given us exactly 24 hours to accept client species status or face correction. They seem genuinely confused by our unwillingness to immediately submit. Morgan nodded thoughtfully. Classic imperial psychology. When you've been the dominant force for millennia, you forget how to handle equals. What's your assessment of their technological capabilities? Advanced, but not incomprehensibly so. Their ships are massive and heavily armed, but our initial scans suggest their fundamental technologies operate on principles we understand. They're ahead of us by perhaps 2 centuries of development, not thousands of years. That's something, at least. Morgan gestured to the woman beside him, a compact, dark-skinned scientist with close-cropped hair. This is Dr. Amara Okafor, our xenopsychologist. She may have some insights. Dr. Okafor nodded. The Vecteri display classic symptoms of what we call imperial stagnation. Long dominant species often develop rigid hierarchical thinking and lose the ability to innovate. They expand through intimidation rather than adaptation. Meanwhile, added Morgan, 3 more Earth vessels are on accelerated approach. The UES Defiant should arrive within 18 hours. Chen raised an eyebrow. The Defiant is a warship. A precaution only, Morgan assured her. Earth Command felt we should have options. Now, tell me everything about these Vecteri. Culture, communication patterns, physical characteristics, anything that might give us an edge in negotiations. As Chen shared everything they'd learned, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more complex than a simple territorial dispute. The Vecteri's immediate demand for submission suggested either supreme confidence or deep insecurity, and either could be dangerous. Grand Admiral Zex Terrell stood before the Sovereign Council's holographic projection, the 9 most powerful members of Vecteri society, floating the shimmering images arranged in a semicircle. These humans refuse standard classification protocols, Zex Terrell reported. They speak of diplomatic relations and cultural exchange as if they were equals. Supreme Sovereign Vex Marin, whose projection sat at the center of the council, leaned forward. Have they demonstrated any technologies of concern? Their vessel is primitive by our standards, though their faster-than-light method appears somewhat unusual. Our sensors have difficulty tracking the exact mechanism, and yet they show no fear, commented Counselor Nex Lara, the oldest member of the council. This suggests either ignorance or hidden strength. It is irrelevant, countered Counselor Tesveric, head of the Dominion's military. No species has successfully resisted incorporation. If they refuse to accept their proper place, we simply demonstrate our power more convincingly. Supreme Sovereign Vex Marin raised a hand. We have ruled this sector since before these humans' ancestors discovered fire. We will not be hasty. Grand Admiral, you will proceed with the meeting. Assess their true capabilities. If they continue to resist proper hierarchy, you have authorization for escalated correction measures. Zex Terrell bowed deeply. As the Sovereign Council commands. As the projections faded, Zex Terrell turned to the viewport overlooking the Dominion fleet. 16 massive warships had now gathered, each capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag. These humans would soon learn, as all species eventually did, that the Dominion's rule was absolute and resistance merely a prelude to submission. Yet something troubled the Grand Admiral, the human captain's calm demeanor, the unexpected laughter from her crew. In 16,000 cycles of Dominion expansion, no species had ever laughed when faced with Vecteri might. What could these humans possibly know that the Dominion did not? The human advantage. The meeting location was a massive space station orbiting the system's asteroid belt, its crystalline architecture catching the light of the system's star in prismatic displays. Ambassador Xavier Morgan stood at the viewport of the shuttle carrying the human delegation, studying the structure with professional interest. Impressive engineering, he commented to Dr. Okafor beside him. Notice how the entire station rotates to create artificial gravity, but the central diplomatic module remains stationary. Captain Chen, seated behind them, was more focused on the 16 Vecteri warships now positioned throughout the system. They've nearly doubled their fleet since yesterday. Not exactly a gesture of goodwill. They're posturing, Morgan replied without turning from the viewport. Classic intimidation tactics. The question is whether it's for our benefit or their own. The shuttle docked with surprising smoothness given the different technologies involved. As the airlock cycled, Morgan straightened his formal diplomatic attire, a simple dark blue uniform with Earth's planetary emblem. Remember, he told the 6-person delegation, our goal is to establish a framework for future relations, not to accept any classification system. We are representatives of Earth, not supplicants. The airlock opened to reveal a corridor lined with Vecteri guards. Taller than humans by nearly half a meter, they wore armor that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states, their star-filled eyes unblinking as they assessed the human delegation. At the end of the corridor stood Grand Admiral Zex Terrell, flanked by 3 other Vecteri in elaborate attire that Morgan assumed indicated high rank. Ambassador Morgan, the Grand Admiral said without preamble, you will accompany us to the assessment chamber. Morgan stepped forward with measured confidence. Grand Admiral, thank you for arranging this meeting. We look forward to productive discussions about establishing peaceful relations between our civilizations. Zex Terrell's expression remained impassive, but one of the other Vecteri, a female with elaborate silver markings around her eyes, showed a flicker of interest. This way, Zex Terrell said, turning without waiting for acknowledgement. The assessment chamber proved to be a vast, circular room dominated by a raised platform, where 9 ornate chairs were arranged in a semicircle. Only 3 were occupied by elderly Vecteri whose elaborate headdresses and multiple layers of the color-shifting fabric marked them as significant authorities. The Partial Council honors you with their presence, Zex Terrell announced. You will now present your case for classification above Category 3. Morgan exchanged glances with Dr. Okafor, whose slight nod confirmed his instinct. This was not a diplomatic meeting, but a show trial, with the outcome predetermined. Esteemed Council, Morgan began, humanity does not seek classification within your system. We propose instead a mutual recognition of sovereignty and the establishment of diplomatic relations as equal civilizations. A murmur ran through the Vecteri officials present. The central figure of the Partial Council, a female with elaborate crystal implants across her brow, leaned forward. You misunderstand the purpose of this assessment, she said, her voice carrying surprising warmth despite her words. The Dominion's classification system is not negotiable. It is the foundation of galactic order as established 16,000 cycles ago. All species are evaluated based on technological advancement, cultural stability, and strategic value. Morgan maintained his diplomatic smile. With respect, Counselor, humanity's philosophical tradition holds that all sentient species possess inherent dignity and right to self-determination. We've encountered 3 other spacefaring civilizations prior to the Vecteri, and in each case established relations based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical classification. This caused visible consternation among the Vecteri officials. The Central Counselor exchanged glances with her colleagues before responding. You claim prior encounters with spacefaring civilizations. Our records indicate no advanced species in your sector. The galaxy is vast, Morgan replied simply. Perhaps there are regions even the Dominion has not fully explored. Before the conversation could continue, a Vecteri officer rushed into the chamber and approached Zex Terrell, speaking in rapid tones too quiet for the translation systems to capture. The Grand Admiral's expression darkened. This assessment is temporarily suspended, Zex Terrell announced. The humans will be escorted to holding quarters until further notice. Morgan stepped forward. Is there a problem, Grand Admiral? Additional human vessels have entered the system without authorization. Explain this violation of diplomatic protocol. Captain Chen intervened. Those would be our scheduled support vessels. Grand Admiral, we mentioned in our communications that additional ships would be arriving. They pose no threat to the Dominion. That remains to be determined, Zex Terrell replied coldly. You will remain here while we verify your claims. As the human delegation was led away, Morgan whispered to Chen. The Defiant arrived early. Chen's expression revealed nothing. Along with the Einstein and the Gagarin, Admiral Zhou believes in punctuality. In the holding area, comfortable but clearly designed for containment, the human delegation gathered around a small table. They're panicking, Dr. Okafor observed. The arrival of additional ships wasn't in their script. Morgan nodded. They've built their entire civilization on being the unquestioned authority. The concept of dealing with equals seems genuinely foreign to them. Ambassador, Captain Chen said quietly, Admiral Zhou's battle group includes the Einstein. If things go poorly, Morgan understood the implication. The UES Einstein carried humanity's most advanced defensive technology, developed after their encounter with the radiation-based life forms of Proxima Centauri. It wasn't designed as a weapon, but in the right circumstances, it could certainly function as one. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Morgan replied. The Vectheri need to understand we're not a threat, unless they make us one. On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Admiral Sophia Zhao watched the tactical display with studied calm. Her battle group, 3 ships including the Defiant, maintained position just beyond weapons range of the Vectheri fleet. They're bringing more ships into formation, reported her tactical officer. 23 capital ships now, with smaller vessels deployed in defensive patterns. Zhao, a veteran of Earth's unification wars with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a tight bun, nodded without concern. Standard intimidation formation. They want us to see their numbers and be impressed. Admiral, her communications officer called. We're receiving a transmission from the Vectheri command vessel. On screen, Grand Admiral Zex Terrell appeared, flanked by military officers. Human vessels, you have entered Dominion space without proper authorization. Power down your engines and prepare for boarding and assessment. Admiral Zhao raised an eyebrow. Grand Admiral, I am Admiral Sophia Zhao of Earth Fleet. My vessels are here as diplomatic escort for Ambassador Morgan's delegation, as previously communicated to your government. We will maintain our current position and defensive posture unless threatened. Zex Terrell's star-filled eyes narrowed. Your vessel's presence constitutes a threat to the Dominion. You will comply immediately or face the consequences of your defiance. Zhao leaned forward slightly. Grand Admiral, perhaps we're approaching this from the wrong direction. Rather than threats, let me extend an invitation. I propose a small demonstration of human technology that might help clarify our relative positions. The Vectheri seemed taken aback by this response. What manner of demonstration? A simple sharing of capabilities. No weapons will be fired, I assure you. After a pause, Zex Terrell nodded. The Dominion permits this demonstration. Be advised that any aggressive action will result in immediate response. As the transmission ended, Zhou turned to her science officer. Lieutenant Commander Patel, prepare the Einstein for a localized Uriah deployment. Low power, demonstration purposes only. Patel nodded. Aye, Admiral. Field parameters. Let's give them something memorable, but not threatening. Target the asteroid field, section Gamma 6. Nothing that could be mistaken for an attack. Understood. The Einstein reports ready in 3 minutes. Zhao nodded and opened a channel to the Vectheri. Grand Admiral, our demonstration will begin shortly. We suggest you observe the asteroid field at coordinates we're transmitting now. In the assessment chamber, the human delegation had been brought back under guard. A large holographic display showed the standoff between the human and Vectheri vessels. Your reinforcements change nothing, Zex Terrell informed them coldly. The Dominion fleet outnumbers yours by a factor of 7. Your admiral has requested permission for some form of demonstration. Explain. Morgan smiled. Simply a more efficient way to communicate certain realities, Grand Admiral. Sometimes seeing is more effective than telling. The holographic display shifted to show a section of the asteroid belt. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a barely visible pulse emanated from the human vessel Einstein. As it spread, something extraordinary occurred. The asteroids within its field began to slow their movement, then stop completely, hanging motionless in space in defiance of all physical laws. A murmur of shock ran through the Vecteri officials. One of the council members stood abruptly. "What technology is this?" she demanded. "Gravity manipulation of this precision is beyond even Dominion capability." Morgan maintained his calm demeanor. "We call it gravitational relativity inversion projection, GRIP for short. A relatively recent development following our encounter with the Proximians. It creates a localized field where the normal rules of physics can be adjusted." The display shifted again as the GRIP field dissipated, allowing the asteroids to resume their natural movement. "This is merely one of several technologies humanity has developed," Morgan continued. "Not for conquest, but for exploration and protection. We share this demonstration not as a threat, but to establish a more productive basis for our discussions." The chamber fell silent as the Vecteri processed this revelation. Finally, the Central Counselor spoke. "Ambassador Morgan, the Council requires time to consult with the Supreme Sovereign. You and your delegation will remain as honored guests until a decision is reached." As the Vecteri officials filed out, Morgan caught Dr. Okafor's slight smile. Progress. 3 days later, the diplomatic landscape had transformed. The human delegation now sat at an equal level with the Vecteri Council in a newly prepared chamber designed to symbolize parity rather than hierarchy. Supreme Sovereign Vexmarin himself had arrived, a tall, ancient Vecteri whose eyes seemed to contain entire galaxies. His presence marked the seriousness with which the Dominion now approached these negotiations. In 16,000 cycles, the Supreme Sovereign began. "The Vecteri Dominion has encountered 327 sentient species. None have possessed technology comparable to your gripe system. Most importantly, none have approached first contact with your particular attitude." Morgan nodded respectfully. "Earth has a complex history, Supreme Sovereign. Our species nearly destroyed itself multiple times before learning that cooperation yields better results than domination. This hard-won wisdom informs our approach to interstellar relations. Yet you maintain significant military capability," observed Counselor Tesveric. "As does the Dominion," Morgan countered smoothly. "The galaxy can be dangerous. Self-defense is prudent. Aggression is not." The Supreme Sovereign studied Morgan for a long moment. "The Dominion Council has deliberated extensively. Your demonstration has adjusted our perspective. We propose a new designation for humanity. Allied Independent Species. This classification has not been used in 12,000 cycles." Morgan glanced at Dr. Okafor, who gave a subtle nod of approval. "This seems a productive foundation. Supreme Sovereign, what would this designation entail?" "Mutual recognition of sovereignty, exchange of scientific and cultural knowledge, defined borders, and non-aggression protocols. No hierarchical oversight. These terms are acceptable in principle," Morgan replied. "We would need to establish specific protocols for cultural exchange, trade, and dispute resolution." What followed was 3 more days of intense negotiation. Captain Chen observed with fascination how the Vecteri gradually shifted from rigid formality to more flexible engagement. By the final day, even Grand Admiral Zex Terrell had begun asking questions about human culture rather than simply issuing pronouncements. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during a cultural exchange session. Dr. Okafor had been explaining Earth's diverse governmental systems when a young Vecteri scientist named Lex Varen asked, "Your species permits disagreement with leadership. How does this not lead to chaos?" "Quite the opposite," Okafor explained. "Constructive disagreement often leads to innovation. When multiple perspectives are valued, better solutions emerge." This concept, that strength could come from diversity rather than uniformity, seemed revolutionary to many of the Vectheri present. Whispered conversations in their native language broke out across the chamber. Supreme Sovereign Vex Marin raised a hand for silence. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "there is wisdom we might learn from humanity, just as there is knowledge we might share. This concept of creative disagreement, it is not entirely unlike ancient Vectheri traditions before the age of imperial unity." By the seventh day, a formal treaty had been drafted. The alliance accord between Earth and the Vectheri Dominion established boundaries, communication protocols, and the framework for scientific and cultural exchange. Most importantly, it recognized both civilizations as sovereign equals. As the human delegation prepared to depart, Supreme Sovereign Vex Marin requested a private conversation with Ambassador Morgan and Captain Chen. "You have changed the Dominion," the ancient ruler told them bluntly. "For 16,000 cycles, we have expanded through hierarchy and assimilation. Your resistance and your laughter forced us to remember alternatives. Change can be beneficial," Morgan offered, "even for a civilization as accomplished as the Dominion." "Perhaps especially for such civilizations," the Sovereign replied. "Stagnation is the true enemy of greatness." Your Captain Chen's laughter in the face of our threat. It disturbed Grand Admiral Zex Terrell profoundly. No species has ever responded thus. Chen smiled. "Sometimes humor is the most human response to absurdity, Supreme Sovereign. A concept worth studying," Vex Marin acknowledged. "We look forward to learning more about humanity's unconventional wisdom." Back aboard the UES Horizon, Captain Chen watched as the massive Vectheri ships began withdrawing to their regular patrol routes. Beside her, Ambassador Morgan gazed at the stars. "You know what impressed them most," Morgan said. "Not the grip technology, though that certainly got their attention. It was your crew's laughter. They couldn't comprehend a species that wouldn't immediately bow to superior numbers." Chen nodded. "The most powerful weapon in humanity's arsenal might be our stubborn refusal to accept that might makes right. That, and our equally stubborn belief that every new civilization we meet could become a friend rather than a subject or enemy," Morgan added. "Do you think they'll honor the agreement?" Chen asked. Morgan considered this. "I think they're genuinely intrigued by us. 16,000 years of unquestioned dominance breeds either comfort or curiosity. Fortunately for all of us, their Supreme Sovereign possesses the latter." As the Horizon prepared to depart, Chen couldn't help but smile at how their mission had unfolded. They had come seeking new discoveries and instead had reformed an empire, not through force, but through humanity's unique blend of determination, diplomacy, and the simple audacity to laugh in the face of intimidation. In the vastness of space, humanity had discovered its greatest strength wasn't technological superiority or military might, but the fundamental belief that even across the gulf of stars and the barriers of biology, understanding was possible and cooperation preferable to conquest. It was, Chen reflected, the most human victory imaginable.